Hello, everybody. I'm so glad to see you again, or to know we're seeing each other. I'm not seeing you, but I am definitely knowing that you're there, and I'm so glad that you're back. And I've had a break for a couple of weeks because I did some traveling, and it was wonderful. And I'm so happy to just be back in the saddle with you and to get back to what we do here. And I'm excited to just launch in. So we only have an hour, and you know how fast that goes. I have a couple little housekeeping maintenance things to talk about just because it's been a couple weeks. So let's just dive into what we're doing. Actually, let me turn the chat on. Remember last time I did not remember. Sorry about the ring light, and I'm sorry about the glasses bomb. Let me go into the chat. I want to yeah, I've got mine. So let me see if this works. I'm actually putting out my own chat to see if that's there. Yes, so that's me. I am there. Hi. Yep. So it looks like I believe I am being, there's two things there. I don't know. I did one. Anyway, we'll see. Technology guru, I am not. Okay, so here we are. I want to just begin. I'm Dr. Robin Gould. My website is newcovenantpath.com. I'm currently on sabbatical from that website, not writing, not adding content there. I'm kind of just focusing on this and some other things, a book that I'm finishing up, and I've got a few new teachings I've been working on and just some other YouTube stuff, just working on some things. So but you can check out the podcasts and some blogs that I have on there, newcovenantpath.com. And if this is your first time to the program, welcome. And you might have recognized my name from being one of the authors of the Becky books, the BEKY books, Building and Encouraging the Kingdom of Yeshua. And this is a series of books spearheaded by Dr. Hollissa Alewine of the Creation Gospel, where she wanted to have a bunch of books, a series of books to give people really simple, easy, reader-friendly information about the Torah and things associated with how to interpret the Torah, how to read the Torah. Some books are a little more simple than others. I have 4 of the books. I have a trilogy on the dietary laws to address a lot of those things. I have a book on marriage and divorce and remarriage in the Bible. And I hope you can check those out. They're available on Amazon. So that's kind of how you might have heard me. Here's somebody coming on in here. And we have Andrew. Hi, nice to see you. It's so good to see you. It's so good to be back. I actually traveled to Tennessee. I'm in Florida. And I went to Woman of Valor, which is a ladies' retreat. We had to have a smaller retreat this year. I think there was a very long waiting list. I apologize if you wanted to go and couldn't go. But you're going to get something here that I did there today. So there'll be a little nugget of Woman of Valor for you today through me. So that might work for you. But it was a nice trip. I used to live in Tennessee, and it's just very crisp there and like nice, beautiful. We were in the mountains. It was beautiful. And it was great. And I was really happy to just kind of get away from my house. It's been a long time. I'm sure you might feel the same way. But it was nice to get away, and everybody is fine. So that was that. Let me see here what I've got to talk about. Okay, first of all, I'm trying to work this out. I have a new office, so it might not look like I do because I put my same bookshelves up, and I actually set up my shelves exactly like they were before. It's fine. I find people, I do work here, and I find people really like the shelves the way they're used to. It's funny. I'm kind of like that too. Maybe there's a little monk in all of us. But anyway, I'm trying to play with the light because my other office had a nice couple of windows right with the sun shining on me. And now I have a house next to me. I'm on another part of my house, and it's very dark. So I have like my ring light, and I have a couple of mirrors here to deflect light. I don't know if it works, but we'll see. When I look at the playback today, I'll know if I like it. And a couple of things. I just wanted to answer a couple of questions. This might sound funny, but people ask me what nail polish I wear. So I always want to know what nail polish people wear. So I think that's a great question. But anyway, this is Himalayan Salt. And this is by Color Street. And a friend of mine actually hooks me up with this. If you're interested, get in touch with me and I will get you the information. And what these are is like these little it's like nail polish that comes like already painted on a little strip, and it's like 97% dry. And I just press it's just like nail polish. You just put it on your nails and then it just dries and then on its own. It's really, really easy because I'm horrible at doing my nails. And ever since this COVID situation, I haven't been out and done my nails and anything like that. So this kind of saved me. So anyway, there's a question there. People were asking about that. So I wanted to share about that. Okay, so we've had a break. Okay, so the future begins now. Whatever you've been up to today, whatever's gone wrong, whatever you felt stressed about, let it go. The future begins now. Let's walk forward. Let's not be defeated. Let's be together. We're safe when we're together. So what I would like to do today is I would like to do a teaching that I've already done on this program a few months ago. And it was about Miriam's dilemma. It's called Miriam's dilemma. And I might have called it Miriam's event then. But anyway, one thing I want to say is, and I just want this as a principle, I want to talk about this. I never, ever want to be the kind of person, teacher, whatever you want to call anyone that shares anything that they find exciting and interesting in the Torah. I never want to be that person that doesn't just come back and say, you know what, I revised this because I learned more. And I think if you aren't doing that, I don't know if you double check your process, that we really should always be learning and adding and changing and revising and getting to that next level. So never be settling. Now, that doesn't mean, a lot of these basic things are always, we're right about them. I get that. But I really improved this teaching and made this more accessible. And I got a little feedback from someone I respect highly. And I felt like there need to be a couple changes. And also, I wanted to share because a lot of women at Women of Valor were telling me, since the event had to be much smaller than we had planned, because of the rules and the laws, that they were like, oh, I just really, really wanted my friend to hear that teaching or whatever. And I didn't really want the previous teaching that I've improved now. So I just thought we'd do that today. So it's going to be a bit different with a bit of a different focus here and there. Anyway, so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about Miriam's dilemma, and we're going to get into this. So I am going to just get started. So I hope it's light enough. Okay, let me see what I've got here. Got that reflection. I hate doing that too. Okay, so Miriam, let's just talk about Miriam. I can't really do a slideshow properly because it comes on the wrong screen. I have to switch my monitors. I switched my office around. And I really should have had an adult do it because I needed to do it better. But anyway, so Miriam is generally notorious as an adult. She is known for having spoken out against Moses, becoming leprous, and being shunned outside the camp. So that's very commonly when you talk about Miriam, that's what they hear about. Now I'm going to have a part 2 to this teaching because there's more to it. And stay tuned for that. That will be coming up. But let's just get this far today, where we sort of left off last time. Okay, so that's what Miriam's known for. So she's known for really being leprous. And the question here is, because when you have this teaching, people come away with all kinds of ideas about what the agenda is of that story. What's the agenda? What's meant to happen? Now, this is a documented story in the Torah. And the question is this an example of a woman that's been discredited and shunned? Or is this a beloved daughter of God who is being restored? So I think you understand me. I come from an attachment perspective. And if you're new, you'll see in previous shows, I talk about this pretty extensively. Attachment is my thing. So I'm going to say that the Father is always in the business of restoring us. That's his goal, his job, that he's given himself. He's our parent. He loves us, and he's out to restore us and never to destroy us. He is for us. and we are to be in allegiance with him and his will because it's perfect and holy. He is for us. So I want to talk about this restoration of Miriam, and I want to give you a reframe of this story because it's been taught a certain way. Some words have been mistranslated, some words have been added, and some translator bias maybe has been interjected, and it's caused some problems. So, Marie, hi. Oh, look at her. Marie, I'm so glad to see you. I'm so happy. I got Andrew and Marie. And excellent. So nice to have you back. I'm so happy people are joining in. And yes, I'm getting off Facebook. Yeah, so that's the other thing too. I'm going to be doing other things. I have not found Facebook to be very positive encouragement, right? I don't know how you feel, but I have not enjoyed it lately. And I took a month off and it was great. And I came back on, I scrolled for like 1 minute and I'm like, oh, so, okay. So let's get back to Miriam because we want to get the real story. So what we're going to talk about is Numbers 12, 1 through 15. So I'm going to read that portion and then that's all we're going to cover really. And it's, you know what, 1 through 15 sentences has done so much damage in its execution of how it's been executed so incorrectly by so many different people with such probably good intentions. But let's keep going. Okay, Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moshe because of the Cushite woman whom he had married, for he had married a Cushite woman. Now I'm reading the translation that you are probably familiar with, so let's just go with it right now. And they said, has the Lord indeed only spoken through Moses? Has he not spoken through us as well? And the Lord heard it. Now the man Moses was very meek, more than all the people who were on the face of the earth. Go to the next one. And suddenly the Lord said to Moshe and to Aaron and to Miriam, come out, you three, to the tent of meeting. And the three of them came out. And the Lord came down in a pillar of cloud and stood at the entrance of the tent and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forward. And he said, hear my words. If there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, make myself known to him in a vision. I speak with him in a dream. Not so with my servant Moshe. He is faithful in all my house. With him I speak mouth to mouth, clearly and not in riddles, and he beholds the form of the Lord. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moshe? And the anger of the Lord was kindled against them, and he departed. When the cloud removed from over the tent, behold, Miriam was leprous like snow. And Aaron turned toward Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. And Aaron said to Moses, O my Lord, do not punish her, because we have done foolishly and have sinned. Let her not be as one dead, whose flesh is half eaten away when he comes out of his mother's womb. And Moshe cried to the Lord, O God, please heal her, please. But the Lord said to Moses, if her father had but spit in her face, should she not be shamed 7 days? Let her be shut outside the camp 7 days, and after that she may be brought in again. So Miriam was shut outside the camp 7 days, and the people did not set out on the march until Miriam was brought in again. Okay, so don't leave just from hearing that. If you're new and you're like, I want to check out this whole Bible thing, and you just heard that story and you're like, bye. I understand if you might feel that way with what I just read. Rest assured, we're going to troubleshoot this. We're going to find why that doesn't match and fit with the character of who God is and the way he is with his people. So let's just dive in. Okay. You've heard of my big fat Greek mindset, right? It's kind of a fun little play on media narrative that we have taken on in Hebrew circles. I love it. But I want to talk about my big fat bleak mindset. Because now that we've attacked the linear Greek and gone into circular Hebrew, and that's just something we've really covered that. Many layers and many teachers, and there's just tons of DVDs to understand the circuitous idea of what love is from a Hebrew perspective, what all of the scriptures are. And I recommend the Creation Gospel if you're looking for the patterns and the symbols and how that is continuously found throughout the Word of God. So anyway, but my big fat bleak mindset is where we have a lens through which we see things that's incorrect. Okay, so I got some more chat people here. So I say, yeah, that Marie's talking about Facebook, that they've changed about how they handle things. Yeah, I was going off before I even saw that. What a confirmation. Oh, I gotta go, right? Okay. So here's the question that that rendering of that story with the added words and all of the mistranslating. Here's the questions it births. Why is just Miriam the focus of this shunning and not Aaron as well? He spoke out against Moshe, right? Is God meaner to women than he is to men? There's a question, a valid question people would get. And should women have the right to speak, seeing that Aaron wasn't punished? Now, here are the erroneous conclusions that many, many doctrinal positions take after reading this. That God wanted to see a woman be put in her place and demonstrate that for the whole camp. That woman should not speak, but should remain silent. And that God shunned Miriam to demonstrate to us his power. All those things are errors, not to be believed. But let's get into what is going on. Okay, so if we're going to look at the epistemology of Miriam, all right, so epistemology is what makes Miriam Miriam, what are the experiences and her life situation that brought her to this moment here, what makes you experientially. And I want to share a slide here. I want to share the screen because I want you to see the genealogy here. Do you see this? You have that, you have Miriam is the older sister of Aaron by 4 years, Moses by 7 years, and there's her father here, and her mother and her father, Amram. And he was the leader and the head of the Jewish people, and he was the grandson of Levi, right? One of the tribes. So let's stop screen here. Okay, you see that? So you're getting an idea the family she came from, a family of leading. Now, here's what's important. Some people believe that Miriam and her mother were the midwives that were, because they headed up the Jewish people, the Hebrews, that that since they were, they headed it up, that they were those head midwives that made that drastic call to lie to Pharaoh, right? Okay. I don't know that they were. The sages, some say they were, some argue that. I've seen very good arguments both ways. If you've ever seen that, then welcome to the Hebrew world. Okay. And it's okay because it's not a deal breaker and it doesn't really matter. I brought that up just as a matter of note. But you can see Miriam was important, a very important person. She was a prophetess very early in childhood, and the sages say that she prophesied that the birth of Moses, that there would be a deliverer of Israel, and she prophesied that. And so when Pharaoh ordered all the baby boys to be thrown into the river to be killed, Miriam's parents got divorced to prevent the conception of sons. And so Miriam was about 6 years old when this happened. And so you might not have heard that. And you say, wait, the sages, I don't like the sages. I don't want to listen to them. I only read what's in the Bible and nothing but. But if you don't understand the sages here, you won't understand this piece. Because you have to go into Exodus 2, 1-4. It says, now a man of the house of Levi married a daughter of Levi, right? So this would be Miriam's parents, because it says they conceived, gave birth to a son. It was a beautiful child. She hid him for 3 months, but when she could no longer hide him, she places him in this papyrus basket, coats it with tar and pitch, places the child in the basket among the reeds at the bank of the Nile, and his sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. So there was already a sister. She was older, and she was taking a protective role. So the sages are right. There was a divorce. And here's what's important to understand. As far as remarrying, so someone asked this at Woman of Valor, a beautiful, intelligent friend of mine who is so smart to bring this up, and I really need to mention this. We don't remarry our former spouse. That's prohibited by the Torah. And we have this law of the husband. You can read this in my divorce book where you can't do that. If the woman has been remarried, so if she's married somebody else or gone and been with somebody else, she's no longer chaste, she's no longer able. But in this case, she hadn't done, they had only separated for the sake of life, trying to prevent life from being destroyed. So I just want to mention that's why. But when you see this, you see there's a sister. So this really brings us into something that Miriam did that was really amazing. So let's go to the next thing here. I'm prompting myself with my PowerPoint, so I won't miss anything. So Miriam actually admonishes her father. So according to the sages, she says to her father, she says, your decree, she's 6 years old, right? Your decree is worse than Pharaoh's, for Pharaoh aimed at boys only. And while you would prevent both boys and girls from being born. So she's, in a time of honor your father and mother, remember those days? Well, guess what? Her father did. To prove this was a prophetess, this child, this girl, he honored her wisdom. He heeded her words. They remarried. They conceived Moshe, and a lot of the other couples, they followed their lead, and they got back together. And a year later, Moshe was born. So, well done, you, Miriam. Right, listening to the words the King of Kings give her. Okay, let's keep going. So here are the 5 main points that we want to just kind of remember as we are talking about Miriam, so we can put this in together and discuss this story much better than we did before. Okay, so Moshe's mother, hides him for 3 months. When she can't hide him anymore, she places him in the reeds of the Nile. Okay, we got that. Miriam stands by watching over Moshe to see what's going to happen, in part to protect and in part to be an informant to her mother and father. So the daughter of Pharaoh came to the Nile. Now the Nile was one of their gods, and she was leprous. She actually came to get healed by to engage in idolatry. Well, she sees the basket and touches it, and according to the sages, is healed instantly from her leprosy. She looks at this child and thinks, this is a beautiful child. This must be one of the Hebrew babies. And she keeps it and adopts it as her own. Now, people wonder, why would Pharaoh could have any baby anywhere? Why would she just take this baby? Well, according to the sages, it's because the minute she touched the basket, it healed her. I don't know. If you could just go get a baby, I would want the baby that when I touched its cradle, I was healed of an infectious skin disease. Okay, really interesting. And so she knew immediately that she should adopt this child. And so here's Miriam standing by. She offers to go get a wet nurse, and which would be a couple of years, right? That the baby would be cared for while the possession of Pharaoh's daughter, but cared for. And what does she do? She goes and gets her own mother, who actually is able to nurture and nurse and protect her own son and get paid for it. Now that's a pretty good prophetess, right? So she got wages for that. So I think that's really stuff we need to know about Miriam, that this was Miriam, right? This was what she did. And so she's really a heroic cog in the gears of biblical history from a very young age. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Her father listened to her. She prophesied. Moshe wouldn't even be here without her. All right, that's pretty exciting. Here's Ellen. Hi, Ellen. Nice to see you. So glad you're here. She said, good evening, family. So we already feel like a family. Don't you love that? Now, for Miriam to be a heroic cog in the history, right? In the gears of history. Okay, we got to get into this piece because this is going to be central to this teaching. And it always pretty much ends up being a central part of my teachings because it is the lens through which I teach and what I understand. So if you've been to this program, you know I teach about the false self quite a bit. It's an important part, and I think the most vital part, and the point of the Torah is to leave the false self. So teshuvah, returning back to the Father, would be also returning back to the true you, the garden you, your garden self, I call it, your true self, the person, the human being that he made you to be, the way you're designed, the way you're put together, the way you process information, and the way you bring it to the table. That's you. You are a unique being made the way you're made, and you are not God. But we go into the false self, and the false self is really, I believe, introduced here in Genesis 3:4-7. I'll read this quickly and we'll move on, but it is central to the teaching, so we have to get involved. Here's what we're going to focus on here. You will not surely die, the serpent told her, for God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. When the woman saw that the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eyes, and that it was desirable for obtaining wisdom, she took the fruit and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. The eyes of them both were opened. They knew they were naked, so they sewed together fig leaves and made coverings for themselves. Now, remember, the serpent is a liar, and it's not truthful, but here there's a mixture of some truth. Now, he says you won't die. Well, of course you'll die, because when the Father says, if you eat of this tree, you will die, he does not lie, and you will die. But he said, if you eat from the tree, you will be like God, knowing good from evil. Now, none of us can be like God. And I want to make that the most clear. If you learn anything from any time spent with me, you can't be like God. Now, you are to be holy as he is holy. You are to be set apart. Being like God is the attempt to usurp his authority over your life. Try to take on his role in your life. That's the false self. The true self is to be the human being that he made you to be, the way he is, and to adapt to his word against our flesh sometimes, because our flesh would be a false self resisting the truth. That's how I see it. We need to resist. We do need to trust and rely on the Father, to rely on his word, and to follow that word even when it seems weird to, because we trust him. From an attachment perspective, he's our primary attachment figure, and we trust and we follow. So it isn't that she could be like God. It was the fact that she wanted to be like God. When she ate of it, she didn't know good from evil. She was ashamed because she was naked, because she could see her vulnerability. But since she didn't have the ability to actually be the judge, she could see nothing but they could see nothing but people who should hide from God. That's all she could see. Because when you eat off the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, trying to be like God, you're saying, I want to be the judge. I want to know what's good and what's evil. But I will tell you what, my friends, you and I don't know what's good and evil. We can read the Bible all day and all night, and we won't know what's good and evil. We won't know the difference between the two, because we aren't there and omnipresent and in every way, always everything to everybody. So somebody can do something wrong, but it's up to him if it's evil. Somebody can do something right, but it's up to him if it's good, because we don't know. Somebody could be shoplifting. Yes, that's wrong. It breaks the commandment of stealing, but maybe they're getting baby formula because they weighed it out and they didn't know what else to do. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm not saying that's good or evil. What I'm saying is I can't say. I'm saying I'm taking that piece of fruit and I'm just throwing it back. I don't want to take a bite of it. I don't know what's good and evil. I am not qualified. You aren't qualified to look at anybody else and say what's good and evil. Now, that might sound like a really profound, aggressive, emphatic statement I shouldn't make, because it's like there are some very evil things. Yes, of course there are evil things. but we aren't the judge of how that goes down. We don't even have the remotest ability to know everything there is to know and to render a judgment. That's why we need God. He is the judge. He is the one that knows all things. We just need to follow him, listen to his voice, and go. That's all we do, is just go toward him. Just keep going toward him, going toward him. Keep, your eyes off the pasture, except where, you can do some help. Okay, so that's the false self. Okay, anyone, let me look at the chat. Maybe people are getting riled up. I hope they are. Shalom, Laura Lee. Yes, you are here. Oh, this is already getting better. We've got all these fun people. It's like the family's back together. Laura Lee, hop in and say anything, you guys, Ellen and Andrew and Marie, anything that you want to say about this. But they didn't know how to even judge themselves. They hid. They didn't run to the Father and say, we wanted to be like you. But you didn't make us to be like you. You made us to be us, and you be you. Right? So he's not looking for competition. He's looking to delight in the human beings he made. And he's proud of himself because he made human beings that are very good. And the human being is a complex situation, and he made it and invented it. And I just don't want us ever to lose sight of how incredible our Creator is. Just look at the color of green grass and then a blue sky with white clouds. He invented color. How that refractory experience is perceived, he invented that. I mean, he created it. He is the most incredible. I mean, there are no words. Yeah, we're not going to be like him. So we be holy as he is holy. But as far as the role he plays in our life, he is the authority. He is sovereign. We are not the authority. We are not sovereign. And when we run in little circles of a dog and pony show where we want it all Game of Thrones in our head and we're doing that, you're going to get in trouble because you're trying to make it all about you. When really it's all about his delight in you, not you. Okay, really understand that. Okay, I'm not trying to condemn. Okay, so Laura Lee, I missed the first part. I'm so into the false selves. Yes, we need to understand who we were knit together to be. Oh, so beautifully said. Who you make us to be. I rejected myself for way too many years. No more false self for me. Oh, excellent, Laura Lee. And that is just music to my ears because that is why we are here and the future begins now, right? Like I say, I've been a false selves to do the chorus line. So I am right there with you as we do that. And we have Dane. Shalom. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Okay, I'm so glad people are popping in here. Okay, so there's the false self. So let's see, since I believe that's the whole point of everything, is to leave the false self and get into this beautiful, intimate, beautiful, amazing relationship with God. And what turns people off from wanting to be involved with God is they think that they have to hate themselves and not love themselves and be all angry to follow and love him, when that isn't at all what he's doing. Now, it doesn't mean there isn't anger. There's not times he's not angry or disciplined or correct or whatever. Parents, have to do that. But I really, if you're struggling with stuff, stick with me. Just stay with me and let's just go and do a little bit more. And just stay with me a little bit more, okay? If this story is triggering you at all. Okay. Now, so what is Miriam really? If you look at this, she was operating within the full capacity of her gifts. She was given the gift of prophecy and she operated that way. She did what she was told. She was the prophetess. She was wise. She was able to convince her father. She was the rescuer. She was the watchman and the informant. These weren't false selves. These were her obeying her calling and walking in those gifts. Now, do you ever notice that sometimes your false selves come out of it's so innocent the way it starts. Sometimes it's our gifts. And then it's like we get some recognition or some reinforcement, and then we're off and running, right? It kind of takes over us. Kind of like sowing fig leaves. It's sort of like taking creation and using it as an alternative to God. So we're given creation to enjoy. And what we do is we take it to cover up our brokenness of not feeling like we're enough, when creation was given to us because we were everything to the Father. And we miss that. We forget that. And he's constantly reminding you, you're everything. You don't need to pretend or act. So here she is operating within her gifts as these are the roles that she was called to take. So let's keep going. Now, what I think is that Miriam had actually gotten lost in her past and had forgotten who she was. I think that's what's happening, right? I think we're being shown this story with an agenda to comfort and to help us with a protocol of how to live this out. Okay, I think that's actually what the Torah and Messiah are all about. I mean, that's my goal, is just to share that. So the idea of everything is to return. That's what we are doing. We are returning. Okay. I actually want to share a screen because I want you to see my picture for that, because I think it's important. Look, to return, see, like a view of the garden. Okay. So I just wanted to do that. All right, let's keep going. Okay. So the objective of this teaching, just to let you know what I want to tell you, is I want to prove to you that God was restoring Miriam back to her true self, her garden self, and not shunning her and making her an example to the camp and shaming her in a way that was, mean and petty. Okay. Now, here are some clues, and I'm going to share a screen just so you can see what I'm talking about. This is stuff. See, this is just up to verse 9. And these are some of the things that we have to talk about. Look at that. All of these things that I've laboriously taken out and looked at and studied because they're wrong the way this is being presented. So let's go to this next thing here. The Cushite woman. This is clue number 1. Let's just look at this really quickly. Okay, this is annoying. This is where you're getting some of these racial issues, because you've heard some people say that the Cushite woman was known to be a woman of color. So Miriam, not wanting Moshe to marry a woman of color because she was a racist, is being punished for racism. This bothers me on many levels. Number 1, there's no proof of that. But number 2, it is standardizing the Hebrew people as only white, that they would be mad that he would marry a woman of color, when it's very annoying. Whenever I'm looking for photos to share, it's like you're getting all these blonde-haired white people. Like, I love blonde-haired white people, but what I'm saying is that probably is not a very accurate depiction of what the people look like that we're talking about. Here's an example of a picture that you're seeing. Like, do you see this like blonde Moses? And like, do you know what I mean? Like, that's, an artistic rendition I don't agree with. And I think that the idea that this was a racial issue it just comes out of racism, to be honest. And I don't want that to enter into our world here. This is a safe place. We're not doing that. So I want to dispel that by just my own argument, which I believe holds water. And I'm going to stop screen here, but I just wanted to point that out, that I don't believe that was racism. Here's what I believe about the Cushite woman. Let me see. The Cushite woman, Moshe left his first wife. Okay. Are you struggling with that? You're like a lot of people. What? Marriage is sacred. You're not supposed to leave your wife. We don't understand everything, my friends. But Moshe was called. This special man was called, and he left her and divorced her to do a mission. We'll talk about that in part 2. If we don't really have time to do it justice, I don't want to try to shove it in here. I want to cover that carefully. And was one of the prophetic things that Miriam did was tell her father, remarry mommy. We need to make a Moshe. Okay. So number 1, she's like, and now you left your first wife, and instead of remarrying her, you're marrying this person. So we're assuming Moshe listened to the father and was doing what he was told. That might not make sense to us in our linear world, in our bleak mindset, but this is how it goes. You've got to just let go of some of these things you're afraid of and just go with it. Okay. I'm not saying be so open minded that your brains fall out, but we do have to be open. And we'll cover that in part 2. But here's clue number 2. And they said, Aaron and Miriam both said, has the Lord indeed spoken only through Moshe? Has he not spoken through us also? Okay, let's get into this. I think what's happening here was Miriam's first mistake was to dictate her role according to her past. So because she was a prophetess in the past that was instrumental in intervening where marriages needed tweaking or fixing or the status needed to be dealt with, that was her past. And she was called to do that, but she wasn't called here. But she thought, well, that's my role. Sometimes, my friends, our roles change as we go, right? Sometimes we're mothers to little kids and then they leave and we just crumble. But our calling is now to be a mother of an adult and do other things. Okay. We have to adapt to the path because the path is not going to adapt to you. This was not the time for Miriam to be the prophetess and to intervene. This was a time where Moshe was directly listening to the Father and Miriam was to follow. Okay, let's keep going. Are you with me? Okay. The question is, do we put God in a box? And do we expect him to be accountable to what she thought he should enforce based on something he's done in the past? Maybe she saw that as a precedent and it was her job to jump in. Do you ever do that? It's my job to jump in and make everything right. Cannot tell you how many times I've done that and how much I regret it. Okay, let's keep looking here. So here's clue number 3. It says, now remember, they said that, but only Miriam is the focus. So don't let that go from your mind. Let's see what time we have because we're going to run out of time so quickly. Where's my, okay. Well, my goodness, we have got to keep going. And you know what? This might be a 2-part series. I apologize because we've already gone like so far into our hour here and I'm only like halfway through. And this might be good because it'll give us time to actually explore these things a bit more. So let's let this be part 1. And next week we will do part 2. These are going to go in bookends. And you know what I'll do? I'll wear the same top for the next one so you'll know they go together. How about that? That'll help you organize it. Yeah, let's do that because my shows are listed by date, which I think is might be harder for you. Okay. Clue number 3, and the Lord heard it. So, you know, when the Bible is written, it's not like wordy in superfluous ways. It just doesn't like, let's throw in a little detail here just because we need a little more imagery or we need to round out the sentence, right? That's not how this works. And the Lord heard it. So I hear something so strong there about not who Miriam is, but who God is. A present father listening to his children as they struggle and walk through life that's really hard. And he's with you. And he hears your struggle. So that makes me think back to Deuteronomy 4:7. For what great nation is there that has a God so near to it as the Lord our God is to us whenever we call upon him? And then I have this picture I'm going to show you. I actually want to share a screen because I like seeing it. Makes it more powerful. It's by Zig Ziglar. Every obnoxious act is a cry for help. I do believe that with all my heart. I know that makes it really hard to hate as many people as we want to. I stand with you on how hard it can be to forgive some people. But the Lord heard it. The Bible goes out of its way to say, the Lord heard it, right? So when the Father is walking in the Spirit in the garden which is the cool of the day in the spirit. That's what that really means, actually. He says to Adam, he says, where are you? And Adam is hiding, right? But then when he says to Abraham, where are you? He says, here I am. I'm actually reading a book right now called Here I Am. And that whole principle is in there. It's an excellent book. It's written by Leonard Felder. So, little plug for there. A friend of mine told me about that book. So, what is he really saying? Where are you, Miriam? And she's like, here I am, trying to be a prophetess, trying to do what I used to do, trying to have a voice, trying to be heard, trying to be important. Okay, that's how I hear that. Because Miriam was important. She was this brave big sister who helped her family, her brother, and ultimately the seas parted because Moshe held up his staff. Okay. So clue number 4, okay, that this has been missed. These clues are pointing us toward my theory, my hypothesis that he was restoring her, and that the story is leading you in that direction to understand that that's what's being said. These details are important. So clue number 4. The man Moshe was very meek, more than all people who were on the face of the earth. If you look up that word, and I'm going to share a screen here. I'll show you. It talks about, like in Psalm 22, it talks about the meek will eat and be satisfied. He leads the humble. That's the meek. He leads them in justice. That he teaches them his way and they will hear him. See, so you have these, these are a descriptor of Moshe is listening to me, right? Moshe was listening to him. So if you go into the clue 5, this kind of comes together. Let me stop the screen for a minute. Clue number 5 is another one. Okay. And we're going to maybe 2 more clues. Okay. So the way a word is first used is very important because it can always help us understand how to interpret the word now in its use now. So I want to look at that word because here's the word we're going to look at. And suddenly the Lord said to Moshe and to Aaron and to Miriam, come out, you there, you 3, to the tent of meeting. Now, it could have said, and it said the Lord heard this. It could just say, so the Lord said, come on to the tent of meeting. I want to have a word with you, right? But it doesn't say that. It says, and suddenly the Lord said to Moshe. Okay. Now there's a unique word being used here. And the first use of this word, and I'm going to share a screen because I want to show you. Okay. Let me share the screen. Okay. Here's the first use of this word. It's in Numbers 6:9, and it's associated with separation, which Miriam is separated. So we're finding a connection here. And it talks about here, this word suddenly, it's talking about the Nazirite vow. It talks about if somebody suddenly dies in his presence and defiles his consecrated head of hair, he shaves it on the day of his cleansing, the 7th day. And on the 8th day, they go into the tent of meeting. So something dies and something is triggered in God. That word suddenly is interesting. You have the Nazirite vow. So make this connection with me. Something dies. This is the first word you see this, right? In Numbers 6:9. So you can go look that up. And I want to look here and show you something dies and something is triggered in God. So that word suddenly means abruptly, like unexpectedly almost. So something in God was like triggered. That's interesting. So this kind of leads us to the next clue. And I want to show you the picture of it here. Let me get the next clue here because they go together. Okay, clue number 6, because we're gonna get clue number 5 and link it. These all link together. It's very hard to know where to link, but hear my words. If there's a prophet among you, and there was Miriam, right? She was a prophet. Just because she wasn't actively called to be prophesying right now, didn't mean she wasn't a prophet, right? Didn't mean that. Just means you're not being called on right now. So if there's a prophet among you, I, the Lord, make myself known to him in a vision. I speak with him in a dream. Not so with my servant Moshe. He is faithful in all my house. With him I speak mouth to mouth, clearly and not in riddles, and he beholds the form of the Lord. Why then were you not afraid to speak against Moshe? So where do we first find use of this word? I'm looking, is this going to take me back to Genesis? It absolutely takes me back to Genesis. That word is the word, I was afraid. Here's Adam. I was afraid. It takes us right back to Adam having eaten that fruit and Chava, and they hid because they were afraid. Why were you not like you were in the garden and speaking against Moses? Why weren't you afraid now? Why weren't you like Adam was, knowing he had done wrong? Why weren't you afraid? That is an interesting question. I find there's so much more we could talk about with that clue, but it is a clue. It's taking us back to that first usage was when Adam and Hava were hiding because they had tried to be like God. They realized they couldn't, and they were hiding and they were afraid. And he wonders, why aren't you afraid like they were? They knew they'd done wrong. Okay, let's go a little further here into the next clue. That's clue number 6. Okay. Let's look at this. I want you to see this slide, actually. So in other words, he is asking, what is in you that's resisting embracing or trusting my way? That's another way to understand that. So the question would be, what would have to die? Well, here it would be the false self. This is the image of us that we create to be like God, that attempts to override the reality that his nostril breathed life into you. It wasn't reversed. We don't give him life because we evangelize him and invoke his existence by bringing him into the room. He exists, okay? That's why he is I am, right? I am. But the false self resists the reality that you are not God. That's what the false self resists. Stop the screen. Do you hear me? Now, let's get to, I don't want to finish today without this next clue. We've got to get into these last because we have to end on this note for today. The anger of the Lord was aroused. Okay, that word, the anger of the Lord was aroused. If we look at that word, let me share a screen again. I got to show you because I want to prove these things to you. I don't want you to just think I'm pulling out opinions here. There's the word for anger, right? And let's look at the next slide. Okay, that word we find, the first usage is the word for nostrils in the garden. His nostril was aroused, and he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. So when it says the anger of the Lord was aroused, it wasn't the word anger. His nostril was aroused. And what is that nostril, right? What is that nostril? You know what that is? The part of him that gave you life. That's what the nostril is. That nostril is the part of him, mouth to mouth, right? Face to face. We went right up and he gave mankind life. That part of him suddenly was present and aroused at what was happening. He was watching this happen. He was watching his beloved Miriam in the cycle of, I'm going to prove how good I am. And what's his shtick again? You're good because I made you. There's nothing you can add to your goodness or take away, because this is what I have made. I have created you, and you are very good. You can't add to your value. You can't detract from it. by virtue of who made you. This isn't humanism. This is the opposite. This is humanity, which is created by God. So that's pretty powerful. Those words, when you look at them and you take this story and you understand Miriam and you start digging deeper, you start getting the picture that God's going through something here too. He is going through an experience too with his humans. He's aroused. He's bothered. He's going to act on it. Miriam's important to him. Not just because she did all the stuff that he said to do, but because she trusted and loved him and he made her. It's important that we understand that. I love this part. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's look. Let's go do another clue here because I think we have time. Yeah, we do. We have a couple minutes more. Okay. So then it says, and he departed. Okay, and it looks like, and he basically yelled at them and then took off. The word isn't departed, okay? The word is moved or walked. That's what the word is, and let's look at that. And let's find the first usage because that's kind of been awesome. Share a screen, and I'm going to read a couple comments that people are making. Here's the first use. See, we go back to Genesis. And it's how the Tigris flows east. It's the word for when God was walking in the garden in the cool of the day. Right? Does that make sense? So, did he depart and abandon them? Or did he move? Did he walk? Did he take action? Yeah. What kind of God do we serve? An abandoning God who says he'll never forsake you, but forsakes you? No. So Laura Lee says we have different seasons in our life, different roles, different callings at different times in one lifespan. That's right. And wow, that's powerful. I'm glad that moved you. Thank you, Laura Lee. That is so good. It's the false self that fights relationship with him. The inner child is the one that has the authentic relationship with him. Oh, you are speaking my language, Laura Lee. Our real selves, right? That child. Yes, very, very true. The question is not what is wrong with you. The question is what happened to you. What has happened that caused you to think you were not good enough and had to develop defense mechanisms to self-protect and adopt a false self. This is the root of addiction. Absolutely right. And Laura Lee, you and I'm telling you, we're in the same room because that's what I think was happening with Miriam. Because she was, I believe, had embraced the lie. The serpent tells us that we need to do more than what we were created to do to be worth something. We have to be like God. We have to cover our brokenness ourselves. We have to be important. We have to, all these things. When the Father is like, no, that is not what you do. And so he didn't abandon them. He moved in this situation because he has work to do, and his work is restoring his people. And that is what he is focused on, is restoring Miriam, not shaming Miriam, certainly correcting her and guiding her, steering her with his rod to the pasture when she's unsafely on terrain that is not of God, trying to be him, right? Very important. I'm trying to think of how I want to close today, which point or where I want to finish. Let's look here. We're going to actually get into the rest next week. So I was on slide 40. So I'll remember that. We'll start there. So let's close our ideas here. And thank you for all that information, Laura Lee, that you shared from your heart, because I really believe that's the exact point I'm making. And I think when we read these stories, and particularly new people, like people that you're talking to about God, they're like, wow, that story of Miriam just turned me off to God. It just seems like he was unfair. He was just sort of sexual politics. He had favorites. He was hurtful to her. She so she said a thing, whatever. Like, or Miriam's awful, terrible. Look what she did. Now, I'm not saying we don't get stories in the Bible where people do awful things and they have to be corrected and dealt with. But when we research, we actually look closer at the words. And people, before they had televisions and radios and all this entertainment, they read the Torah and they understood things. And words would trigger connections. The first time we ever heard this word was here, and we haven't heard it since. And now we're many, 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 many words later, and this word's brought up again uniquely in this sentence. It harkens us, right? Sorry about my phone there. I had to leave it on to keep, in case I need to look up a scripture in there. But what do you think about that? We're reading these stories, and we're not quickened to the language or the words because we're just like reading it like a story. But before we had so many distractions, and this was your TV, before technology held us hostage for our whims and our pleasures and our numbing, and I'm as guilty as anyone. Not saying it's always bad to enjoy media, but this was something that they would have picked up on. So yes, it certainly is the glory of God to conceal a matter and the privilege of kings to search it out. Yeah, and we are searching things out. And is he sprinkling nuggets for the people in 2020 to find how much he loves them? Yes, I think he is. I think that's always his goal, is to always be sending us love letters. But through Miriam, he's sending her a love letter. He's sending us a love letter. We haven't even gotten to the best part because we didn't have time in the hour. Because these 15 lines are so important for your life, right? Your life depends on understanding this point that is made over and over and over. And we're going to cover them. We're going to find the stories and we're going to reframe them. We're going to unframe them. They've been framed in the wrong frame. And we're going to reset what their true meanings are of how the Father interacts with his people, because he loves his people. He loves you. He doesn't want you to try to be like him. He wants you to obey him, which would be in allegiance with him, and that would be like him. But he doesn't want you to try to think you can know good and evil, even in yourself. This is for the Father to know. Now, when we do wrong and we repent and we know, I was selfish, I was immature, I was obnoxious, I was distracting, I was materialistic, I was greedy, I was attention seeking, whatever it is, all these things, right? We look at what we're doing and we repent and we're sorry. And we're saying, Lord, I am so sorry. And I want to turn from that. I don't want to do that anymore, right? The judge of all that, and how now it's your job to repent. Absolutely. Don't ever misconstrue anything I'm saying. Obedience and repentance are a given. And I hope you know that just like off the top. But in that cycle of beauty, which is, right, repentance and obedience, in that swirl of love, that beautiful smear of love that really all covers, he's the one who judges it. And if we think we can, we seriously delude ourselves and we die. There are ways we die, in many ways. Our hearts die. When we think we can be God and then we can't, that is a really bad place to be. Not only are you disillusioned at your non-God ability, the world just seems completely out of control. But when you know it's not up to you to fix the world and you're in the shade of the one who can, you can handle the world and whatever it throws at you. But when you think you are a part of that solution in your judgment, you will crumble. You will die. Some part of you will. Maybe physically you'll die, but something will die. You will be crushed. And not pressed, I'm talking crushed. So, a merciful God, does not want you to be crushed. He wants you to be pressed. He wants you to be stain-free in your white garments. He wants you to be in his lap. He doesn't want you chasing after yourself or anybody else. He has made you. You are found. Just go to him and he's going to show you, I made you and you are just perfect the way I made you. So very important that we get these concepts. So you can see the other teaching, I really am going to take that down. We're going to stick with this one. And then, like I said, we did half today. There's so much more to do. And Laura Lee says, yes, restoring us to his image, restoring us to what he knit us together to be. That's it. Who are we as precious children? The root of fear often comes as a need to control. Yes, that's right. The controller is a false self. And we have created an image of ourselves to ourselves and to everybody around us. And it's false. It's a hologram. And the Father can't get to know that. He didn't make that. That's something you made. That's a graven image you made of yourself. And so really we are in a place in our lives where even social media challenges that on an hourly basis. Like, create an image of yourself. It's hard. We're always teasing apart what that looks like. Who am I? Who is my neighbor? Like, love your neighbor as yourself. And Instagram can really present a neighbor that might be hard to love, and it might not even be real about that neighbor. So anyway, there's just so much to this story. These 15 lines have given rise to racial problems, doctrinal problems with gender politics and religion, and with understanding who God is as our parent, as our restorer. It's misproduced ideas about shame, about shunning, all these things. And when we go through part 2, you're going to see even more why this story was so important to me to really dig and tease out these facts. So I'm so thankful today that you were here and you sat through this. And I really appreciate people commenting and people who are invested in kingdom building with me. I really feel like that helps me. And I feel like it makes the teaching better. And I really enjoy that because I'm just talking to this little tiny camera in front of me. And I like to look at you, right? I want to see you. And I really think this is how we bond and we build this kingdom, right? And the kingdom is in here, right? And it's being born again, little kids. So thank you for joining me today. We will meet again next week. We'll do part 2 of Miriam's dilemma. And then actually there'll have to be the part 3. Because remember I mentioned there'd be a part 2. We're going to actually do part 2 next week. And then I'm going to add part 3. So we're going to keep on going until we have finished this story. And if you're not around Laura Lee, you can do? You can just, yes, you speak my lingo too. You can just catch it on the archives because all of these are archived and you can watch them at any time. I think it's really hard to watch live things a lot. So I think that's what we will do is we'll just finish it up next week since we've overhit our time actually. So you can find me, newcovenantpath.com is my website, even though I'm on a break from that. But Becky books are available on Amazon. And if you want to check those books out, I think you might really enjoy those and share them with your friends, because that's definitely our goal is to build the kingdom with love. So thank you for joining me. I will see you next week. And remember, the future begins now.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.